Yesterday I was driving back here with my grandson after having spent a few days at my kid's house, and as I was pulling off the freeway to drive up to my house, God started telling me to pray for not by sight faith. So faith not by sight. And I did not understand the message, and I'm still learning the message, discovering the message as he's teaching it to me. I mean, I thought that's what faith was, not by sight, right? But it was clear that he was going to teach me something deeper, how deep my faith actually has to go. And I was not looking forward to it, quite frankly, but I did pray for it. And it reminded me of how the word says that we don't even know how to pray. We don't even know what to pray for, but the Spirit intercedes for us. And it's not the first time he's done that. Like, he's done that many times. Put a prayer on my heart or something to ask him for, something to ask him about, to take me deeper. And certainly he could just do the thing, right? But if he's drawing my attention to it and he's telling me to ask him or he's telling me to pray for it, now I've got to receive it. Like, I'm agreeing to accept this building process, and my attention is drawn to it and I'm looking for it. Well, so that's how it's been. And I came back to the house and there were a series of challenges and testing that was already beginning, and it was really breaking me down. And then I knew that I wanted to do this video as soon as I had the chance, and so this morning I did this video regarding living water and returning to Eden. And I believe it seems like these last couple months of my life are a real refining and purification process, putting the final touches, smoothing out those jagged edges. And, you might think, oh, well, the bulk of the work has been done. This is just the sort of polishing up. It's a lot. And I'm going to tell you why I believe it's a lot, because the devil's got less than 2 months to try to throw me off track and make me afraid and mess with me. Because what God has me doing as a witness, as we learn in Revelation 12, is the second criteria that is required in order for the devil to lose his place in the heavenly realms. There's something else that's spoken of in that chapter of Revelation 12, and that is this battle that's going on where Michael and his angels are fighting against the dragon, and the dragon and his angels are fighting back, the dragon being Satan, but they were not strong enough and they lose their place in heaven. And I want to draw your attention to the Michael and his angels fighting against the dragon. And we see later on in the chapter that the way that the dragon is fighting is that he stands before God in his courts day and night, accusing the brothers and sisters. So that's what he's doing. And he's pulling out everything he possibly can on me. And there's a lot, believe me, I did not live a clean life. So there's a lot that he can bring up, and then God and his angels will bring these tests on me and make sure that I've been proven. Just like, by the way, he's going to do with you. You got the same covenant as I have. We're being purified, made spotless and refined. The process of making gold is to put it through the fire and melt that gold and separate the impurities from the solid gold, the pure gold. All right, so if it feels like you're melting, that's why. Don't be surprised at the fiery ordeal that has come upon you. Well, so I've been sitting with this message. What does it mean to have faith not by sight? Or I believe the way he stated it to me was a not by sight faith. So a lot of what God has been doing, for example, I spoke about this morning. I spoke about it the last couple of days. My water's been shut off, but there's still water coming through the pipes. So, and by the way, when the water was shut off, nothing. Okay, bone dry. Sometimes a trickle here and a trickle there. But then God started moving me for him to bring that water out of the pipes by my faith. But he was moving me in something that I could physically see. And then he was doing this dance with me where if I, for example, if I went and tried to, okay, there's water coming through the pipes, I'm going to go store the water. I'm going to go get a bucket and fill that water so that I have water to wash my dishes. Or if I were to go and get one of those 7-gallon camping jugs of water and fill it up with some water, and then I'd have a guarantee that I have the water. But this isn't what God was allowing me to do. So when I was collecting water, I actually had less water to do the things that I needed to do, like wash dishes, than when I just said, okay, I'm going to just trust you. And the water was there. And the water was there, maybe not to wash a full load of dishes, but to wash the dishes as I went. And there was water to cook the food that I needed to cook. And there was water to clean me and brush my teeth and, do the things that I needed to do. Water to flush the toilet. Like I said in the previous video, I didn't need to go grab a bucket and fill the toilet with water so that I would have water to flush the toilet. I just was able to do that. He's not going to have me living in squalor. And he kept telling me, I'm going to give you what you need. And then the day before Sabbath, he told me to collect, just like he did with the manna with the Israelites. He told me to collect enough for tomorrow. So this is what he's been doing with me. And it's not an easy way to live. We take for granted just turning on the shower or turning on the faucet and the water's there and there's unlimited amount of water. I have a limited amount of water. When I'm done, when I don't need any more water, the water trickles back down. And so it's easy to feel unsettled about that, because what you're doing in this process is that you're using the water and you're reminding yourself, okay, God has the ability to give me what I need. I'm not going to be afraid. I'm not going to do this in anxiety. I'm going to do it in full confidence and stand in my faith. And then the water trickles back down, and it's easy to think, oh no, is there going to be enough when I turn it back on and I need it again? Well, you got to work your heart back into trusting that he's going to be able to provide. The other option is to do things by the work of your own hands and collect all of this, and then he's not going to take care of things. He's going to hand you over to what you've chosen, which is the work of your own hands. So this is not an easy way to live. And some of my plants looked stressed yesterday when I came home. There was a temptation for me to go and water the plants, but what am I going to do? Go and use the water he's giving me to water all the plants? Is that what he wants me to do, or does he want me to trust him? Is he going to water the plants? Well, that's what he's told me, that he will take care of the land. And you know why? Because this is what he's always done. He's actually always taken care of the land, always taken care of the crops. And this is the relationship that he's had with his people, is that if you live in obedience, you're going to be blessed. And part of that blessing is that I'm going to send the rain in its season to take care of the crops, to take care of the land. And I don't think it's a coincidence that this is occurring during the hottest months of summer, because I know what God is doing. Like, I know that what he is doing is building my faith, and that he's showing me that he can take care of these things in the most impossible circumstances. And so this very thing that he had been using with me of seeing, of being able to see and have that dance with him, that in the physical, I was able to see this and be able to kind of gauge my faith and where he's taking me and this and that. He started challenging me on it. He started testing me. And I had my little grandson with me. It's one thing to go through it when it's just me. It's a different thing when I have my grandchild. So today, for different reasons, I did end up having, my daughter came out and picked up my grandson. I had enough water, really. I had enough water to take care of him, but it was very stressful, and I just needed to sit with God. So as I was leaning into this message and wondering, is this what you're saying about faith not by sight? Like, what are you trying to teach me in this message? Why did I pray for this? What was I actually praying for? He began to also talk with me about David being the least of his siblings. I think he was also the youngest, if I remember correctly. He was herding sheep. He was a simple guy, just a boy when he was called by God. And he goes up against Goliath. The most unlikely situation, right? Like, not by sight would you determine that he's going to be the winner in that outcome. You would look at that and you would say, he doesn't have a chance. You're not betting on David. And yet that's what God chose, right? Because God looks at the heart. That's what we're told. And he started to remind me of other things that he's done in his word, such as cutting down the Gideon's army so significantly, because he didn't want to yield and will not yield, as it says in Isaiah 42:8, his glory to another or his praise to idols. Like, do we understand what it is that God wants for us to see? He wants us to know, he says it 1,000,000 times, then you will know that I am the Lord. Then you're going to understand. I will not yield my glory to another or my praise to idols. Here's the thing. Like, you pray for someone to experience healing, and then they go to a healing ministry, or they go to a doctor, or they go to a naturopath, and that's the thing, right? Or they go to acupuncture, and that's the thing that they're going to praise. They're going to say, oh, God did this, and yes, praise God, but you know, that acupuncturist, but you know, that person, they really know what they're doing. And God isn't sharing that. He says in Exodus 15:26 that he is the Lord, our healer. And that if we obey him, he's not going to put any of the diseases that he put on the Egyptians. He's not sharing it. He's not sharing his praise or his glory with things that we put before him. That's an idol. And so he requires that we give him our full trust, our full surrender, our full submission and obedience and belief. Otherwise, it's not going to happen. And so he does these most unusual things, like bringing the Israelites out and then setting Pharaoh against them. You notice that in that story that Pharaoh's heart, God is the one who keeps hardening Pharaoh's heart, because he's teaching the Israelites something. And he tells us later on through Paul that there are objects of his mercy and objects of his wrath, and that he's created those objects of his wrath, just as he says, I raised you, Pharaoh, for this very purpose. He creates those objects of his wrath in order to reveal his glory to the objects of his mercy. And so it's God that sent Pharaoh. The word says that, not Satan, God. He's the one who sent Pharaoh after the Israelites. And he not only sent him after them, he sent Pharaoh in chariots. The Israelites were on foot with everything they owned, bread troughs or dough troughs or whatever, and their children. And they're being chased by madmen in chariots. And the thing that's in front of them is the sea. And God splits the sea open and then closes the sea on their enemies. That's an impossible situation. Not by sight, right? What did Moses tell the Israelites? He said, the Lord is going to deliver you. You need only be still. Meaning, you need to stand in faith. Because if you don't stand in faith, you won't stand at all. If you think this message, by the way, is just for me as a witness, like I'm just sharing a story with you, you're wrong. You're going to be here during the Antichrist reign. You are going to be here during some impossible situations. And so if you wickedly just listen to this like this is some sort of reality radio or something, I'm old, so I say radio. If it is reality TV or reality whatever, this is just a story to you, I can promise you're going to bring more grief on you than is necessary. Lean into the offering that's being extended to you, because you're going to need it. You're going to need it at some point. I need those offerings that are in the Bible. And when I'm trying to understand how to stand in faith, I don't have examples in real life. There's no one living this out except for my kids, but not to the extent that God drags me through because of my role right now. And so I have to go back to the Word and look for those examples. And believe me, I'm searching for them, because I'm like, this is bananas. Oh, it's right here. I see. Paul is going through that. Jesus went through that. Oh, here it is in the Psalms. God's miracles are always done in the context of reducing things to the impossible, because he says he doesn't give his glory to idols. And so he's going to make sure, first of all, that no credit for his miracles are going to be given to something else. And you remember that Jesus, when he was going through the towns, he couldn't perform miracles in certain towns because they didn't have faith. Why? Is it because of Jesus? Because his power was somehow reduced? No. It's because God is not going to yield his praise or his glory to idols. But in the impossible, where you have no other option, his glory can actually be revealed. Whereas in the possible, we make sense of his miracles by crediting an idol. What he's teaching me right now is that I can't judge any situation by the looks or the sight of it, but by his power to fulfill all things. And so when I'm looking at these impossible situations that I'm going through, and I'm learning how to hone that biblical faith, I have to believe in his power to fulfill all things, to accomplish all things. And I've got to check myself and make sure that my heart's in the right standing where I actually believe that and I'm standing in it, or it's not going to happen. I can't open up my faucet and see that there's a drip and then, or it's bone dry and be like, see, God just isn't faithful. He's not faithful, or he's not being faithful today. I got to bring myself to a different place. So for 3 weeks, I received, a notice to vacate this property. And I was told that I had to leave by the 27th. But I stayed. And I shared with you on this channel why I stayed. I've shared with you on this channel many times that God has told me, stay in the land. And that he's teaching something. And he has indeed taught something. And I'm going to tell you right now, it would be a lot easier for me to go move with my kids. This isn't my decision to make. It's not like I'm holding on to something over here, okay? This is something that God is doing as a sign and also to teach me so that I can teach you. Because we look at the word and we say, why did the stupid Israelites, why did they leave the land? God gave them this land. Why did they leave it? Because it was hard. Because the covenant is hard. Newsflash, that's what the word tells us. The covenant is hard. And the word says in Jeremiah 42, Jeremiah told the people, they asked him, ask God what we should do. The people who were left after Nebuchadnezzar laid siege to Jerusalem. What should we do? Ask the Lord and we'll do whatever he says. And so Jeremiah tells them. He says he's relented concerning the disaster he's brought on you. Stay in the land. But if you're determined to leave and go to Egypt, where you say your bread will be provided and you won't see war, then God is going to chase you down with sword, famine, wild beast, and plague. And you're going to die there, where you went to escape. You know why it was hard to stay in land? Because the relationship that God established with his people was not like you go to the grocery store and, your bread is there. Or, you have this industrialization boom and all this stuff is provided to you that previously you had to rely on God for the rain to grow that thing. And to grow those crops and give you enough. And if you were experiencing famine, then you remembered the covenant that you have with God, that he said, when I send these things, famine, plague, etc., disease, then my people need to return to me. And when they return to me, I'll restore them. If they return with humbling themselves, repentance, sackcloth and ashes. You don't even feel the need to do that, do you? Because everything's provided to you. You turn on that faucet and your water's right there. You don't have to wait for the rains. And and we're so far removed from the rains even being related to the amount of food that we have, because we can go to a grocery store, right? But if you were living in Jerusalem, where God told you stay in this land and you're to work the land, then you'd be really keenly aware of the relationship between provision and God, and that relationship, and between obedience and provision, or disobedience and a lack of provision. Well, it's hard to live like that, and it's hard to have people harassing you, and it's hard to have people trying to take your land. So 3 weeks ago was about that time when I was supposed to be driven from the land. And on the 27th, I had planned on leaving, and my kids said to me, no, God is telling me that you need to see this all the way through. That he hasn't changed the plan, and that you need to take this all the way with your faith. Okay, well, here's the stakes. On the 28th, I hadn't moved anything because God told me to stay in the land. So on the 28th, I would have been leaving everything. I wouldn't have planned to take anything with me because when you do that, that's your backup plan for God. And so I didn't pack anything. I didn't even pack my car while I was here. Not even so much as a pair of clothes. I didn't pack anything. Not the dog food, nothing. Because I was standing in total confidence that God was going to see this through because he had not changed the plan. It was really important that I heard that from my kids. That was actually the first time that God has used my kids to confront me and hold me in faith. And so it was a real blessing and something very special. And I stayed here. And it was hard. It was hard to stand in that confidence because the other part of that would have been that I would have been brought out by the sheriff in front of all my neighbors, in addition to not taking anything, and that's just really hard. It was a hard risk to take, but I had to push my faith all the way. And so 3 weeks I've been here and no one has come to my door. I haven't seen anyone outside. And I haven't even really questioned it because I whatever God has done, I don't need to know what he's done. But today I received a handwritten note on my mailbox saying that they want me to get out by Friday. This is perplexing to me because they have a court order. They have every right to bring the sheriff. They don't need to keep pleading with me to leave. So what or who is holding them back from that? What do you think? The word says that no one's allowed to touch the witnesses for 1,260 days while they're prophesying. What or who is holding them back when God has told me to stay in this land? What do you think? Why would someone who has purchased a property and gone to the effort of filing court papers so that they have a right to kick me out from that property, why would they not exercise the right that they exerted by filing that paperwork if something else or someone else is not intervening? And I think a lot of people, and myself previously, would have been concerned about sharing something like that on social media, sharing this in this forum where there's a supposed legal dispute. But you know why I'm not afraid to share it, guys? Because I know that if any of you or that person tries to intervene in what God's doing, they're going to be fighting against him, not me. So I felt a lot of devastation, right? Because I'm seeing by sight, okay, you're testing me with regard to the water. Here these last few weeks I've been rejoicing. I've had a lot of peace and confirmation. And I've just been rejoicing in what God has done and even lining it up with the Festival of Tabernacles. And so it's been a huge reason to rejoice that God has conformed these things. But now by sight, there's no water or limited water. And by sight, there's a handwritten note on my mailbox telling me that this is not actually what I thought it was. Okay, so you see where I'm going with this? Like, by all appearances, it looks like, whoa, this has been a false alarm? Is God not actually doing this? But can you believe that before any of this happened, he spoke a message to me as I'm getting off the freeway and driving up the hill to my house? He says to me the very instructions that I'm going to need in order to get through this, in addition to other instructions that he's given me, like don't fear man and don't trust man. And you have to stand in faith or you won't be able to stand at all. And that these threats will not happen. And that all they can do is threaten. These are all things that he's told me. And now he's telling me, do not trust in what you're seeing with your eyes. That right there is not the truth. That is not the reality. You have to have a faith that is not by sight, a faith that is grounded in who God is not by the circumstances or the evidence, right? The world loves evidence. But God defies all that. He defies evidence. He defies science, whose God is evidence. No one's going to prevail against him. And this is the kind of faith you're going to need when the Antichrist has risen. And so as I was sitting and talking with my daughter on FaceTime, and we were sharing the different things that God has been drawing our attention to, I was reminded by God of when Elisha said, "Don't be afraid. There are more of us than there are of them." So let's read that. This is 2 Kings chapter 6, verse 8. Now the king of Aram was at war with Israel. After conferring with his officers, he said, "I will set up my camp in such and such a place." The man of God sent word to the king of Israel, "Beware of passing that place, because the Arameans are going down there." So the king of Israel checked on the place indicated by the man of God. Time and again, Elisha warned the king so that he was on his guard in such places. This enraged the king of Aram. He summoned his officers and demanded of them, "Tell me, which of us is on the side of the king of Israel?" "None of us, my lord, the king," said one of his officers. But Elisha the prophet, who is in Israel, tells the king of Israel the very words you speak in your bedroom. "Go and find out where he is," the king ordered, "so I can send men and capture him." The report came back, "He's in Dothan." Then he sent horses and chariots and a strong force there. Okay, by sight, that doesn't look too promising for one man to be up against horses and chariots and a strong force there. Farce too, yeah. I mean, this is a farce. They went by night and surrounded the city. When the servant of the man God got up and went out early the next morning, an army with horses and chariots had surrounded the city. "Oh no, my lord, what shall we do?" the servant asked. "Don't be afraid," the prophet answered. "Those who are with us are more than those who are with them." Now I want you to think about what I said earlier in the video about chapter 12 of Revelation, where it talks about Michael and his angels fighting against the dragon, and the dragon and his angels fighting back, but they were not strong enough and lose their place in heaven. God is able to make his witnesses go all the way. And of course, Satan is going to try to bring what he's allowed to bring. Because what God is doing is he's testing and proving and purifying us. There is nothing that Satan brings that God is not using. It's not God throwing him a bone and that's why he's allowing him. God is using it. "Don't be afraid," the prophet answered. "Those who are with us are more than those who are with them." And Elisha prayed, "Open his eyes, Lord, so that he may see." And then the Lord opened the servant's eyes, and he looked at the hills and saw the hills full of horses and chariots of fire all around Elisha. As the enemy came down toward him, Elisha prayed to the Lord, "Strike this army with blindness." So he struck them with blindness as Elisha had asked. Elisha told them, "This is not the road, and this is not the city. Follow me, and I will lead you to the man you are looking for." And he led them to Samaria. After they entered the city, Elisha said, "Lord, open the eyes of these men so they can see." Then the Lord opened their eyes, and they looked, and there they were inside Samaria. When the king of Israel saw them, he asked Elisha, "Shall I kill them, my father? Shall I kill them?" "Do not kill them," he answered. "Would you kill those you've captured with your own sword or bow? Set food and water before them so they may eat and drink and then go back to their master." So he prepared a great feast for them, and after they had finished eating and drinking, he sent them away, and they returned to their master. So the bands of Aram stopped raiding Israel's territory. Kind of a funny ending. I think that's a funny ending. I might need to sit with why it is that he fed them. That's not usually the way the war story ends in Scripture. But the point being that the eyes of the servant were opened, and they were able to see chariots of fire, horses and chariots of fire all around Elisha, that Elisha was not alone. And here's what I want to say to you. You're going to feel like you're alone. It's going to feel very lonely. And I don't know that it's going to feel lonelier than I feel right now, because I don't know anyone doing this except for my kids. But I don't know anyone doing it to the extent that God has me doing it. During the time of the Antichrist reign, a multitude that no one could count is being saved. right now, the witnesses, I don't know any other witnesses, but there are 144,000 throughout the world. What's the likelihood I would? And so I'm in a way leading something in the position that I'm in, leading something that no one else who I know in the physical is doing. And it's very lonely and it's difficult. And the things I say to you sound nutty buddy. I mean, they really sound nuts, don't they? No one else except for my kids seem to understand that this is what's required in the covenant. This is a really difficult way to live and a difficult thing to accept. You think I want to go through a third time of sitting here and wondering, okay, is something going to happen tomorrow? Has the plan changed? Why, Lord, are you doing this to me the last 2 months? You think I really want to stay here and deal with this? I don't want to deal with it. I'm doing it in obedience, and because God is teaching me, I continue to see that He's teaching me so much through the metaphors that He's raised in this. And how else would I have known that, staying in the land is so difficult? How else would I understand having a faith that is not by sight in this deeper way? Like knowing what it is that I'm doing and knowing that God is sovereign in the most impossible circumstances, that those circumstances haven't changed anything about God's sovereignty or His power, and that I need to stand in the things that He has said to me. But initially, when He's teaching me these lessons, it's very, very heavy on me. And today it's been very, very heavy on me. It feels unfair. It feels like He's dragging me through the mud. It feels like, some of the things I end up taking up with Him is like, are you for real? Like, more is required. I thought I'd given you every part of me, but oh, look, there's a little remnant in the corner here. Let me go ahead and pull that out for you too. It is what it is. So I ask that you pray for me, because it is hard to go through this. But I also ask that you don't let my offering be in vain. Lean into it. My daughter was saying, I feel like people are going to contact me after you're gone in the next couple months, and they're going to want to honor you in some way, and that they're going to ask about it, especially people who were in the body previously who are still listening to the channel, that they're going to ask about it. And she said, the only thing that I'm going to be able to tell them is honor her by not letting her offering be in vain. Lean into her offering. That's getting it, Like, what can you possibly do for me? The way that the pagans honor people with flowers. I mean, what does a dead person care about flowers? Or some special burial or some special service? Honor me by leaning into my offering and actually returning to God so that this isn't in vain. Honor me by not leaving my children to wander alone. Because my daughter's never been without me. And it's going to be hard for her to be without her mom. This is the best way to lose your parent, I think. For your parent to be a witness. To know that if you finish this race that you're going to be together forever. It's the best way. But it's also really hard to be left here. Have compassion for my kids. Lean into the offering. Care about your own life. Return to God. Please discern this message with God.